All right, Patreon, I have the privilege of talking to Susan Fair, author, and she also works in a public library as well. Susan, what would you like to fill in anything else to that intro that the listeners would want to know about you?
That pretty much sums up my exciting life, I guess. So I've
Awesome.
written
And
a
I,
few books, and I've
yeah.
worked for a public library system here in Maryland for about 25 years, something like
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah,
And is that in Western Maryland then?
I'm in Carroll County
Okay.
Public Library. Yep, but
Gotcha.
I live in Washington County.
Awesome. Awesome. So we are having you on primarily tonight um, to talk about the Snallygaster, which is a cryptid local to Maryland. But you were nice enough to send out a few books that you've written, which I'm definitely going to share about that. So the first one, uh, Mysteries and Lore of Western Maryland, which is like, this is a fantastic book. First, it feels really
Okay.
nice, and it's like it feels like you'd be buying it for a college course. Like it's you did a really good job. And
Thanks,
like
they
I
do a
read,
good job.
yeah,
History
reading
Press, I think they're Acadia Press now. I'm not sure since.
reading through the part of the Snallygaster, it's like there's information in there that I wasn't able to find anywhere else. Like I'm not sure. Like your researching is very good.
Well,
Also, you sent a book about Pilgrim Confidential, which was very cool. So stories about the Pilgrims,
yeah.
which I grew up in Western Mass, so that to me was very interesting. I
Oh,
have
cool.
relatives that live north of Boston in the North Shore area,
Oh,
so that's
wow.
cool.
Well, it's the
Um,
400th anniversary of the Pilgrim's arrival this past year. So,
oh man,
yeah.
I totally spaced on that. Must have been focused
Well,
on a pandemic or something.
yeah, unfortunately, their big celebration did not quite come off as
Oh yeah.
expected.
Oh, well. Maybe they'll push it
But in
back
the
a year.
next
We'll see.
400
But
years.
that's right. We'll get them in the next 400. You also have, this is a really hefty book, American Witches. This is pretty cool. So it says a broomstick tour through 4 centuries, and you even got a write up from Eduardo Sanchez, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
How did you get did you just mail off a copy for him to read, or how did that go down?
he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, I had wanted to interview him for the book.
Ah,
And he was amenable to that. He's a super, super nice guy. And so I met up with him, and we shared a lot of interests in common about uh, history and weirdness and that sort of thing. And we knew about a lot of the same topics and all, but he was very generous with his time. And
that's awesome.
so yeah, so one of the chapters in the book is on the Blair Witch Project, and
Oh,
the
cool.
story behind that and everything. So we kind of kept in touch, and I did ask him, if he would do a little blurb, and I thought his blurb was like the best one, short but sweet.
Awesome. I'm 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 definitely, like, as I said before we started recording, I just gotten these books in the mail, so I'm definitely going to dig into these this weekend.
Oh, good.
Um, for people that are just listening to this, you got to check out the YouTube, because I'm going to point out you have a really cool Flatwoods monster like on your mantle behind. Is that from the museum, or what's the story about that?
Yep, yep. I took a trip with a friend about, I guess it was 2 years ago this
Oh, cool.
spring to Point Pleasant, and then we stopped by Braxton on the
Oh
way
man.
home, and both very cool. And both places have fabulous souvenirs,
That's
fabulous
awesome.
monster souvenirs. So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. There's another one you'll have to add to your list. There's actually a lady I've talked to, Sarah, who is creating a Snallygaster Museum in Western
Right.
Maryland. So
And I just
she
learned
is going
about
to
that
get some
from
cool stuff together.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. That's
So
fabulous.
let's talk about um, so let's talk about the Snallygaster. So kind of tell me a little bit about what we have from what you've looked through your research for writing the book Mysteries and Lore of Western Maryland. So what was the story behind the Snallygaster? What kind of cryptid are we dealing with?
Um, the Snallygaster was supposedly a flying sort of dragon-like creature that had talons that looked like steel hooks. He had one eye in the middle of his forehead and a screech like a locomotive.
Oh
And
man.
that was when he first appeared in 1909. And then he made sort of a comeback in 1932. And during that period, he actually had like tentacles. He or she or they had
Right. Yeah.
tentacles and also could change colors. So he had
Oh
turned
wow.
kind of psychedelic and gotten a
That's
little more
wild.
elaborate. Yes. So that was the appearance, and it was very large.
Wow. So what kind of resources were you able to find this information in? I'm curious.
Well, the story of the Snallygaster actually came from a local newspaper at the time, the Middletown Valley Register. And in 1909, February 12th, 1909, the people of Middletown picked up their newspaper and saw that there was a monster in the area that was flying around and menacing people and had already murdered one man on its way into town.
Oh wow.
And this monster was at the time when it first appeared. It was basically the Jersey Devil had come down to Maryland. Um,
Really?
was how the story went. Yeah. Um, but the Jersey Devil had been making appearances in New Jersey. Was in the news the month before and just happened to appear in Middletown, Maryland, which is in Frederick County, the next month. So, but it morphed quite a bit and was quite a bit more menacing. And it was menacing in particular to a certain group of people, and that was Black men.
I've heard this. Yep.
And yeah, and as a matter of fact, the first article where the Snallygaster appeared in the Middletown Valley Register, the headline read, the colored people are in great danger."
Mm,
Um,
wow.
so yeah, so this was a monster that was specifically intended to frighten a certain group of people.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure, why the editors of this paper. It was actually the editor, George Roderick, and the reporter was a man named Ralph Wolf. And there was also another man who had a hand in it, and his name was T.C. Harbaugh. And he lived in Ohio, but he had been born in Middletown. And he came and spent time in Middletown every year. And he actually wrote some of the Snallygaster material. He sent a warning to Maryland about to the Middletown Valley Register about the Snallygaster being on its way
Oh wow.
to Maryland, and warned that the Snallygaster had already killed one man, um, of course, a Black man, and so that was the first appearance of the Snallygaster,
That's
which
so
isn't it?
wild.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate use of a monster.
It
That
is,
would have
yeah.
been a very cool monster
Well,
otherwise.
that's the thing. It's like, I mean, first you focus on how weird it looks, but then when you get to look into the history, you're like, you've got the one part of history, and then it's almost um, in another part of American history as well, which would be
Mhm.
the Prohibition era, correct?
Yes. Yep. He's sort of made his appearance as Prohibition, was coming upon America, and he died a an alcohol-related death at the end of Prohibition. And in 1932, that was when he made a second appearance, and he didn't last long. He couldn't resist a big vat of moonshine that was being cooked up in here in Maryland, and it drowned in the moonshine. I believe.
Oh, really? Wow,
Yeah. So
man,
yeah. So it's a very very dramatic story.
that's wild. And it's like we just have to mess up monster stories, don't we?
Yes,
My
it could have
goodness.
been so cool. Um, when he came back, they had um, this was the article that was on the front page of the Middletown Valley Register. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah,
how
yeah,
well
yeah.
you can see
Yep.
that, but it actually shows the Snallygaster, and these were the prohibition agents. One was a lawman and one was a prohibition agent, and they were real guys, and they actually were quoted, in the article. This is 1932 about the Snallygaster's demise. I
That's
mean,
so
it was all
crazy.
quite tongue in cheek, but it also there were references also uh, to scaring black people, and I it seemed to be centered around in 1932 discouraging black people from voting, which of course has always been a very very big thing.
How much worse can
Yeah,
this
I
cryptid store,
know,
like, this
I
is nuts.
know,
This is
I
nuts.
know.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's awful. Um, I mean, within this uh racist and terrible construct, there's
Mm.
a good monster story,
Oh,
but
yeah. Sure.
but the monster was like literally born of it. The first appearance of the Snallygaster, February 12th, 1909, was the date of a meeting in New York City that was
Mm.
the founding of the NAACP. And it was
Oh,
I
boy.
the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birthday, the founding of the NAACP, or the organization that would become the NAACP, and that was the day that the Snallygaster happened to be
Oh,
born.
man.
Um, yeah,
Wow. That's intense.
it
Um,
is. It is
woof,
intentional.
that is. And, Sarah is I was talking to her, and she's finding the more she looks into this, she's
Mhm.
really having an interesting time with, like, how it's becoming not so much a Snallygaster museum as it is also an American history museum
Right, right. It
because of, as
definitely,
you mentioned.
all of these, like all of our great cryptids, have connections to history. That they're interwoven with history, and unfortunately, the Snallygaster, a very cool monster that was used in a very ugly way.
Mm. Wasn't
Um,
this even Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
Wasn't this even, like, tied into, Teddy Roosevelt in a way? Or, like, I wanna say I heard, like, there was some, like, rumor about that, or
Yes, there were instantly there were a lot of rumors. started by the same people who invented the Snallygaster, the
Mm,
uh, editor and the reporter, I believe, saying that the Snallygaster, that Teddy Roosevelt was canceling his hunting trip to Africa to come out and hunt the Snallygaster.
wow.
Um, and the government was going to bring out a Gatling gun to hunt the Snallygaster. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, yeah. Um, and the Smithsonian was very interested in the Snallygaster, supposedly. And the Snallygaster did some weird and interesting things. He
Okay.
actually spoke to some of the people he was menacing. I'm not sure who it was he was speaking to at the time, but he actually, I think it was, might have been moonshiners, because what he said was, I'm dry. I haven't had a drink since I was killed in the Battle of Chickamauga.
Oh, so the reports are that the Snallygaster actually would speak to
It spoke one time, and that was what it said.
really? Was it
Yes.
verbal speak or like a mind speak? Does it the reference that or
No, he said this, was quoted in the newspaper as having
oh
said
my
that.
goodness. These
What
newspaper
that
reports are
means,
crazy.
yeah, what that means, I'm not sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't know why he would have been killed in the Battle of Chickamauga. I mean, that was a creek, so I guess he could have, I don't know. I don't know. It's
I
kind of,
wanted to go to point out a short paragraph from the Snallygaster section that I thought was very interesting. I hadn't heard before, so that was kind of cool. But so tell me more about this. So there's a time where there's almost like the locals become just crazy about hunting this monster and like they start to hunt owls or like what's the story there? They like capture a big owl?
this was later on, um, and I'm not sure when exactly that was, but people were seeing like a large bird of some kind.
Mm,
Of course, that brought up the Snallygaster legends. And then the man claimed that he had shot this large bird and was keeping it in his basement. And when people went to see it, of course, it turned out to be a poor dang owl that it shot. At some point, there was supposed to be like, yeah. And this, I think, was in like the 60s or 70s. There was supposed to be, I think it was through one of, might have been Thomas Johnson High School, but people were going to get together and have a big Snallygaster hunt. And I think
oh
it was
man.
around Halloween. And that was like a big thing that was planned for a while, but then like it never happened. I don't know for
Well,
some reason.
that's really funny though. There's nothing like
Yeah.
a posse scene, right? You gotta love the posse
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah. Yeah, like, but some people, like, once this article came out, some people did, start claiming that they saw the Snallygaster.
Of course.
So, yeah, but yeah, in a way, it was the Snallygaster's creation, like the year before Snallygaster appeared in the Middletown Valley Register. There had been like a big race riot
Oh dear.
in Illinois, in
Mm.
Springfield, Illinois, like a huge riot. And yeah, and like lynchings were, at an
Oh
all-time
man.
high,
Yeah.
and so it was kind of like they were kind of using the Snallygaster like to, like threaten to
Mm.
lynch, people. Um, Now, someone had also told me that, and this was a gentleman who I think was connected with the Historical Society in Middletown when I was researching the
Okay.
book. He said that it wasn't just Black people that they wanted to strike fear into, but it had to do with the National Road being built and going
Really?
right through Middletown. And they were concerned that there were a lot of what they would call ne'er-do-wells traveling on the national road, like riffraff that they want to
Mm,
keep out of
mm-hmm.
town, like, there might be some hobos or something like that. So,
Oh
so
man.
that they also like wanted to kind of scare away,
Wow.
others that they considered undesirable. So,
It almost makes me very thankful that there's no sightings of snallygasters recently.
yes,
You know,
that's true. That is
if
true.
it's tied to all these terrible parts of American history, like let's keep it in the past,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, in a way, it's a wonder there's not more
well,
sightings.
that's a good point. Yeah, yeah. Oof.
You wonder
Yep,
how much
that's
it's
completely
changed.
true. Um, you also include accounts of the Dueyo in your book. Do you mind talking about that cryptid a bit as well? Because they're kind of connected, right?
Um, the Dueo was like also later on, and it was more. I think it was in the '60s. It
Okay.
was kind of an upright. Some man claimed that he had kind of had a fight with this um, upright walking creature. And somehow it was connect. It ended up being connected to the Snallygaster. I think just because it was another cryptid, but it really didn't have anything in common with the
Ah,
Snallygaster at
gotcha.
all. I mean, if anything, it seemed
Gotcha.
like a dog man or
Mm-hmm.
possibly a bear, but I don't
That's
know.
funny.
But hopefully a dog man. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but
Dog
there was
man, those are scary.
also there was also,
Mm,
in the area, this is kind of the South Mountain borderline Frederick, Washington County area out here.
okay.
Um, there was a Snarly Owl, which is the black
Mm,
dog legend, and I think a lot of places have, a version of the black dog or Snarly or Snarly Owl, and there is a good one, around here, and it would block the road when people were
really?
traveling late at night, and it would grow like larger and larger until it blocked
Oh
the whole
wow.
road. And people traveling, in their wagons on the way home at night might see it running alongside and be kind of
Oh
giving
man.
chase. And so it was kind of scary and menacing. So he was cool. He was cool.
Totally. I'm curious. So what led you first to write this book and it's not just cryptids. I mean, there's so much it definitely goes over all parts of lore of Western Maryland. What drew you into creating this book?
Well, I've always been interested in this sort of thing, like most of us,
Mm-hmm.
And in 2010, I got married and moved from Mount Airy out here to Boonesboro, where my
Okay.
husband was working for the Park Service. At the time, he worked at Antietam, and
Mm.
when I moved out here, I just felt like it did wear off, but I felt like I was on vacation because it was just like the mountains and
Oh
trails
yeah,
and
yeah,
Greenbrier
yeah.
Lake and battlefields and everything was just so interesting and fascinating. And of course, I was thrilled to hear about the local cryptids and ghost stories and all that kind of stuff because it's way more than in Mount Airy or any place else I'd lived.
Sure.
Um, and I've been um, already doing some writing for some magazines and that sort of thing. And I wanted to, do a book. And History Press, does, the local um, uh, compilations of, legends and things like that.
Sure.
So that was how I ended up doing it. But I learned a lot working on the book about the
I
local
bet.
legends and history, which is all interconnected. And
Putting together a book like this, did you find that how far did you really dig deep into like reading old newspapers like microfiche style, or what was the most that pretty much is what it takes to put together a book like this?
I did have to do some microfiche style because the Middletown Valley Register, as far as I know, it's still not online anywhere like newspapers.com or anything.
Oh,
So
wow.
I did go to the library in Frederick where they're super awesome and helpful, and that's where I got the microfiche, the articles from the Middletown Valley Register.
Oh, man.
And, yeah, um, but, I talked to a lot of people, at the time, I was working at the Boonesboro Museum of History,
Okay.
and there's a lot of objects and things related to, folklore, that, were on display there, like in, one of the fabulous things in Boonesboro, there on South Mountain, there is a Wizard Ziddle,
Oh,
who
really?
had, yeah, they would in the 18 mid 1800s. They when somebody had a sick baby or sick cow or lost something important or needed some kind of help, they would call Wizard Ziddle, and he would come with his little spell book and take
Oh,
care of it
wow.
for him. Yeah. Um, so he's one of the characters that appear in my book, and yeah, that everything about him is true. And
Oh, man.
and it was a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch
Oh, sure. Yeah.
folklore and folk magic and that sort of thing in the area.
So, are
So
you saying that at this historical society, they had like artifacts from this wizard on display, or?
Yes, at the Boonesboro Museum, which had been not open because of COVID, and
Oh, wow.
but yes, Wizard Siddle's spell book is in there.
That's
His original
that's
spell book.
wild. Wow.
It's the version of the long lost friend or a friend in need, which is like kind of the classic Pennsylvania Dutch spell book. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Man, I
and
thought the Pennsylvania Dutch were just, making some amazing food, and I didn't know they
yeah,
were all into
yeah.
crazy spell books and stuff. Man.
Who knew? Who
Mm,
knew?
wow.
So yeah, so you can try the spells yourself. You can find some of them online though too, so it's worth a try.
I'll leave. Yeah, well, I'll leave the spells to you. I get kind of get a little
Yeah.
spooked out by that stuff. But have you guys ever gone on trips around the US looking at other cryptids besides like the Flatwoods? So we talked about like the Flatwoods monster and stuff like that. Have you ever gone like further out west or any other stuff or?
I have not. I mean, I would love to, but I have not hunted for Bigfoot.
Oh man, yeah,
I
right.
have been to Salem, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but you're in Iowa, right?
I am. Yes, I'm in
And so
central
what's the
Iowa.
Bigfoot situation in Iowa? This-
Well, it's central, not so much.
Mhm.
But northeast, yeah. So
Ah,
there's an episode of Finding Bigfoot where you can it's all about Iowa. In the northeast section, there's a ton of state parks and they're very wooded, and it's that corner is near Wisconsin. It gets super, super squatchy. Have I gone there yet? No, I haven't, but it gets pretty wild. So
oh, neat.
yeah.
Wow. I did not
But
know that.
yeah. You guys have Bigfoot stuff happen out in Maryland ever? You hear about stuff like that, or?
Maryland's not much of a Bigfoot hot spot, but Pennsylvania is, which is very, very
That's
close by
true.
to where I am
Yeah.
in. Yeah, Pennsylvania seems to be quite a hot spot. And
Especially like the Chestnut Ridge area in the western part.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. And even like the area outside of Gettysburg, like Micho State Forest
Oh,
kind of
really?
area.
Hmm.
Like Adams County, York County, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
there's a lot of sightings. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, there's a woman at my work who lives Biglersville. And like people around her area that's very rural, like see Bigfoot like every so often, there start to be a bunch of sightings and she'll tell me, yeah, my neighbor saw it. They're seeing Bigfoot again. So
That's funny. That's funny.
yeah.
Do you just curious, do you have any books you're writing for the future, or maybe taking a little bit of break, or anything on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm not currently working on any books. The Pilgrim book came out this past year, and I
Nice.
haven't started anything since. So I'm hoping to get some momentum, and I haven't felt like doing much the last few years.
Gotcha.
But yeah, but so we'll see. We'll see.
Man, this has been super fun. I'm glad that I had you on, because this is probably the most, like, one, it's hard to get people to talk about the Snallygaster. Two, it's hard to get people that have, like, that are really researched into it. I got some other I got to interview another really nice lady, but she was an alternate taxidermist. So she knew some stuff, but she
Oh,
was more like, she made a taxidermy
oh,
version of
fun.
this
Uh,
Snallygaster
that is
using
cool.
a chicken and some other crazy stuff. She had some like
Ooh,
fake tentacles on it. So it's pretty cool. But
awesome, awesome.
um I really appreciate you creating this book. Definitely gonna link it in the show notes so everyone can check it out. And also the Pilgrim book and the Witches book, because I have a lot of listeners that, even though I'm not into it,
Mhm.
they are into that, So I'll be like, dude, check
Yeah,
it out.
yeah,
Check it
and
out.
I'm not unfortunately, I'm not a witch. I wish I were, but that's a lot of work. It's like cooking, you
A
gotta
lot of
get all the
memorization.
ingredients and
Yeah,
measure things and
I
do things
gotcha.
in a certain order, and
I gotcha.
I do
Um,
wanna mention, there is
yes,
another
please. Yeah.
Snallygaster book.
Oh, yeah,
It's
go ahead.
this one.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the
It's
cover of
by
that before.
Patrick Boynton, and he pretty much covers everything about the Snallygaster,
Oh,
so
that's
I
good to
do
know.
highly
Thank you.
recommend that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah,
Thank you
so
so much. That I will definitely link that as well, because it's hard to find good resources. So whenever I can get them, I appreciate them. But
great.
Susan, anything else that you would like to share, or are there do you have some people have like a social media presence, or like if you're just doing your thing, writing a few books, that's cool too. But
I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I am on
okay,
Instagram. So, and haven't been doing book signings because of COVID and all, but
sure.
I was just asked to be at the Renaissance Festival in Maryland
Oh,
in
that's
the
amazing.
fall, so I'm going to be doing that.
That's
So
awesome.
hopefully getting back out there and
Oh, very
hopefully
cool.
getting vaccinated soon and be good
Yeah.
to
Totally. Wow. Susan,
Thank
thanks
you
so
so
much
much
for
for inviting
hanging
me.
out with us, and for
Yeah.
sharing about the Snallygaster and a lot of other cool stuff as well. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much, and you too,
Mhm.
and it wasn't the Snallygaster's fault at all, so
That's
you
right.
definitely
Yeah. Don't take it
yeah,
on the Snallygaster, guys.
that's
Don't
right.
cancel the Snallygaster.